I'm ending the poll and I'm sharing the results. Good morning, everyone. This is Ali Azzuddin from 4th Generation for Education. We're so happy to have all of you today in our special concept day. I'm so excited to work again with Fernando for a session related to music. And Fernando, we have 4% in Australia, 12% are watching from Europe, 7% are in Africa, 63% are in Asia, and 14% are in the Middle East. And all our friends in North America and South America, it's there maybe 2 a.m. in the morning, and they contacted us to check if the session will be recorded. 52% from our attendees are music teachers. And welcome for all the others who are coordinators, 19%, and 25% they are teacher, and then 5% they are playing a different role. And 63% Fernando, they plan concepts unit and they connect to concepts in the music. So I'm going to stop sharing the results now. I'm going to remind everyone to send their chat in all panelists and attendees, so everyone will be able to read your messages. And Fernando, you have people coming from everywhere. If I want to mention quickly the countries: Vietnam, Australia, Singapore, Indonesia, UAE, Kazakhstan, Greece, India, Germany, Austria, and many other countries from all around the planet. All panelists and attendees in the chat, a question in the Q&A, and we're ready to know more about Fernando and to hear about his experience teaching music and teaching concepts in music. Let's go ahead and start, Fernando. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Ali. Good morning or good afternoon, good evening, good middle of the night, wherever you are. It is very exciting to be here today with everyone, and it's great to see the level of attendance for this. I hope that we can have an interesting session sharing ideas, and I will share with you my experience. I'll give you a little bit about myself. My background is in classical music and music teaching. I did a postgraduate diploma in orchestral performance at the Royal College of Music in London, and then I played for about 9 years in the orchestra of the National Ballet of the Netherlands. And after that, that's when I first came across with the PYP, and I had the privilege of being mentored and inspired by Ali, and who was the person that introduced me to the PYP. I've worked in Qatar, in Malaysia, and now I work in Albania as a PYP coordinator of Albanian College Tirana and Albanian College Durrës. Although luckily I've managed to still scrape a few hours to teach music to the early years, which is one of my passions. I got a postgraduate certificate in international education and a master's degree in international education as well. And I have led different workshops, mostly with Ali, in Spain, in the Netherlands, Malaysia, Qatar, Dubai, and some other places. So our guiding questions for today are really going to be, do we have a clear idea of the overall purpose of music as part of the education process? I think it is very important for us to reflect on the why. What is the purpose of what we do? And then we're going to look at how can we find a good balance between knowledge acquisition, conceptual understanding, and skill development. One of the biggest challenges that we have as specialists and as music teachers is to find that balance when we are as part of a holistic teaching method. How do we make sure that we are still developing the subject-specific skills, but reaching all of those other broader concepts and skills? So I will talk to you a little bit about how I've done it, and I'll be very interested in finding out how you have done it and if we can help each other with this. So let's start with the idea of establishing a purpose. This comes from having an interview that I had for a job. And the principal asked me, so Fernando, tell me, why do we teach music at schools? And
You had an answer, Fernando?
I had an answer, yes. My answer was, why do we teach so little music at schools? And he took it quite well. And what I realized though is that for me it was very evident. It was very clear why I was teaching music, but it wasn't necessarily clear for everyone what all the great benefits of music are. And if you list them, they are pretty evident and everybody would agree with them. However, they're not always that clear for everyone. So I guess that many of you will be familiar with Simon Sinek's golden circle, which is that we need to define our purpose before we define how we do our processes and what do we do in the end. So in the chat, can you please write down in as few words as possible why you teach? What is your purpose as a teacher? And if you are a music teacher, what is your purpose? What would you have answered to that question? Why do we teach music at schools? Or why?
Fernando, are you doing job interviews now?
No, well, you never know. We might need some music teachers or any other types of teachers at
So Nancy is saying we teach music to make good people, good learners. Music is a form of expression, to inspire young ones, to make children love music, to inspire, empower, expression of the self, to share the passion, to bring joy. Music will change our brain. Music is universal. Music is part of our daily life to discover the magic of the word. It allows creativity. It allows them to express themselves. To know music is to be human. And music change our perspectives. So I think those are some of the ideas coming in the chat, very interactive chat. And let me remind everyone that you can also join us on the Facebook if you are watching live on the Facebook. And click, please, to all panelists and attendees. If you are only choosing all panelists, the other attendees will not be able to read your answer and interaction. Okay?
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. And you have taken some, you have shared some of the same words that I would have shared. For me,
yes.
There are also two: inspire and empower. So those are the two main purposes that guide my teaching. So music as a way of inspiring people to discover, to find the wonders of the world, the fantastic ways in which we have that we can communicate each other, but then empower. And in the empowering is where I think is the most important element for us as music teachers, because empowering means capacitating the children with the abilities to do things, again, with a purpose. And this is where I would like to go for the next few minutes. So do we really need music? This is kind of what the question was from this principal that was interviewing me. He was trying to figure out what is the need for music. I would recommend everyone to read this book called This Is Your Brain on Music by Daniel J. Levitin. It's fascinating because it talks about all the origins of music, why all the anthropologists that have been discussing, why do we use music? What is the purpose of that? Where is it in the animal kingdom? There's no clear adaptative need for music. So one could say, well, a human being could live without music. So what is the purpose of that? So after thinking a lot about that and discussing with friends and colleagues, I came to the conclusion that there were three main reasons why we use music. One is for leisure. It's just entertainment. It's fun. It's something that we enjoy doing. The second one is for communication, for expressing ideas, expressing feelings, connecting with each other. And the third one has got to do a lot with the idea of identity, something that defines us as a person, but also as a community. And this is where the role of music becomes very important when you are looking at societies, cultures, traditions, and the way that people interact with each other. But then my question was, how do I get my students to understand these things that are quite profound in themselves? So I came up with three ideas. The first one is that music is fun. So any child will understand that. The second is that after reading that book and knowing all of these things that I know about the way that the brain works with music, students understand very well the idea that music makes you smart. And they actually get very motivated when you say to them, well, if you learn to play an instrument, this is going to be like a workout for your brain, and you're going to be able to use this in many other areas of your school life and in your normal life. And finally, they also understand when they experience, and this is very evident, especially when you work in international education, that music is a universal language that helps us express ideas and emotions and connect in many different ways. I'm sure that many of you, if you work in international schools, you've had this experience of kids that come with no English and find it really hard to communicate with others. And they just walk into the music room with a smile on their face because they understand what's going on, because there are no words involved and they are just making music together with others. So how do we communicate this and how do we break it down, these three ideas? Music is fun. This is easy and it's straightforward. Most music teachers will do this. We teach music. We do songs, dances, games, all kinds of musical activities. The second one, Music Makes You Smart, is not too hard because this is teaching about music and all the processes and skills that we need to succeed at music. So this has got to do with practicing, with music theory, history, cultural elements. So all of these ideas are going to make students smart because the music has this capacity to get the brain involved at so many levels. And most music teachers will also do this in different ways. But the last one, the one that relates to the universal language that helps us express ideas and emotions and connect in different ways, this is very, very broad. And this is when it gets trickier. And this is what really helped me working within the PYP environment to realize that I could teach through music. So this means that I could transcend the subject, and by contextualizing what I was doing, I could give it a broader and deeper value. I could use music as a tool rather than as an end. And I will show you a little bit how I try to find this balance between knowledge, concepts, and skills. This is the biggest challenge because usually we will have a huge time restraint, not to talk about resources and just having children only for 1 or 2 hours per week. So I managed to square this circle by defining the work that I do around 4 co's. And I call them co because they all start with co, with that syllable. So I did this by trying to define the context, the concepts, the content, and the competences of the work that I was trying to do. So these are all the purposes that I tried to integrate within the units that I was working with. So I'll go briefly through each one of them. So what is the content? The content responds to the question, what are we learning? What are the outcomes of my unit? So this will be mostly subject-specific knowledge, understandings, and skills. This is where you will have your learning the scale, singing this song, playing this game, or learning to do this. So they can be taken from scope and sequence, or they can be chosen by each teacher to suit the student's needs, or if you have any specific national standards that your school uses. And this relates to teaching our subject and teaching about our subjects. But then this content needs to be contextualized and needs to be put in how is this relevant to the real world? I think that one of the big problems that we have with music is that we often will just teach songs just for the sake of teaching songs. And there is no clear intention to connect that to the real world. How does this learning relate to our local and global communities? So this will be connected to the transdisciplinary themes and to the descriptors that explain these transdisciplinary themes if we're talking on a PYP setting. This then will lead us to the concepts, and these are the big ideas that we want students to understand. Those big ideas that are going to allow them to develop deeper understanding and finding those generalizations that will be relevant. So these are the PYP 7 key concepts plus all the subject-specific related concepts that you might be working on. Conceptual understanding is universal, timeless, and transferable. And it is important for us to keep asking ourselves, are we aiming to this universal, timeless, and transferable learning and understanding? Because otherwise, whatever we do in the music room stays in the music room, and that is not the purpose. So these concepts promote higher order level of thinking, and this one relates to teaching through our subjects, seeing our subject as a tool to achieve a deeper understanding. And finally, we go to the competencies, which I think are very, very, very important, because again, these are learning tools that students will need to acquire understanding, knowledge, and skills. This refers to the how are we learning. And it is very, very effective once you get into the idea of getting students to understand not only what they are learning, but how they are learning, that your teaching becomes a lot more powerful, because they will identify the tools that they need to be able to succeed. Again, these tools are transferable, and when they are learned explicitly, then they can be used in different contexts. And I believe that music is very powerful on this, it's very strong, because there are a lot of skills that are required to be able to play music. If you look at the 5 categories within the PYP, within the IB, you need self-management skills. You need to control your responses. You need to organize your time to practice. You need to plan what you do. You need to set yourself goals. If you are playing any type of piece, you need to do some kind of research, understand where it comes from, what is the meaning of it. You are communicating naturally because you're trying to express yourself through that. And in most cases, you're doing this in a social environment, and you need to do a lot of thinking. You need to be creative with the way that you do it. So students need to be made explicitly aware of these skills, and they need to be a very, very integral part of what we do. So here are the 4 codes defined.
And Fernando, so you went very fast on the first 2. So maybe again, if you can remind us that each section, what you are putting in it in few words, now that we have the full screen and the 4 boxes completed.
So if I start from the bottom left, which is where we would usually start a music class, which is what songs am I going to do, that would be the content. The content is the activities that we do, the specific subject, specific skills that we are looking at. Those go then up toward the context. We need to contextualize this within a theme that is relevant to the real world. And that will help us identify the concepts, the big ideas that are behind what we do. And then we finally go down and we identify the tools that the students are going to need to acquire and develop to be able to succeed in this task. Yeah?
Good. Yeah.
Excellent. So I have now 3 different units that in which I can show you how I have done this at different age levels. We have one on early years, we have one on sort of lower mid primary, and then we have one on upper primary. If you don't work in primary, you work in secondary, I hope that you would still be interested in the concepts that we are looking at, because this could be applicable to anything. So we would like to ask you in this poll, which one would you like to see? I'm not sure we're going to have time to see all 3 of them. I hope that we do. So, but if we do it in the order of interest, then at least we make sure that most people are satisfied with the product that I'm going to show them. So if you can go ahead and just on the poll, select which one would you like to see first, then we can organize them in that order.
So we are giving you agency, and then we are modeling best practices, giving you choices, and reminder for everyone typing in the chat, or the people watching on Facebook. In that chat, click all panelists and attendees. On Facebook, you can text and send the messages, or in the chat box of Facebook. And these are the results, Fernando. Let me ask you, do you have a guess, like what they would like to see before sharing with you the results?
That's a good question. Well, I don't know, because if there are more people that are coming from a sort of a secondary environment, they might go for the higher one. So I guess there would be more people towards that side. That's my
Good. So we know that the music teacher, they teach all levels sometimes in the school. I'm ending the polling here and I'm sharing the results. So Fernando, 42%, they wanted the grade 4 and 5, and then 36%, they are our KG teacher and they would like to see how do you do it in KG. And then we have, hopefully, if we have enough time, we can go and share with you also the grade 2-3 unit of inquiry. Excellent. So Fernando, let's give it a start. Do you want to start with this order? So we go to grade 4 and 5 first? Yeah,
that's fine. I'm just gonna have to quickly scroll through all the slides. But we'll get there. So you get a sneak preview of what you're missing if we don't see those. But here it comes. Okay. So I can close the...
And then you can close, yeah, the poll.
So we're gonna we're gonna have a look at grade 4-5 unit. Also, the reason why I have presented different ones is that each one of them starts on a different point of these 4 codes. So you can see how we can start from different places depending on we've got. Sometimes some of those boxes are already given to us because they are an integration with other units. And in that case, the job is slightly easier because we already have some elements filled, but it's sometimes a little more challenging because the connections might not be all that evident. So if I go into, oh, hang on, here we go. So if I go into the grade 4-5, I started here with concepts because I wanted my students to learn to play an instrument. And I felt that it was very important for them to develop a very clear idea of how the development of instrumental skills requires practice and commitment. So the biggest outcome for me, the origin for this unit was I want them to realize that they need to practice. So they were going to learn to play the recorder, but I wanted them to be very aware of this idea of practicing. So I took it from there and I thought, okay, what can I do next? So that was my content. It was fairly clear. This is all taken from the scope and sequence. So play melodic patterns of increasing difficulty, play music using non-traditional or traditional notation. I added myself, develop practice and reflection routines that will improve their skills and foster their capacity for commitment, reflect upon how their music expresses their personal voice, and so on. So it was all about playing an instrument. So after that, then I realized that when they are playing and with a background on professional music playing, I realized that just playing and practicing is not enough. You need to be able to express yourself. And I thought, okay, this is a good idea to include the concepts of function and perspective put together, because I need to understand how musical elements work so that I can then be creative with the way I play. So I need to understand that there are things like dynamics, articulation, and different tempos that I can choose, but I need to choose these again with a purpose. I want to express an idea. This took me then to what are the competencies, what are the skills that they are going to need. So they're going to need to be able to manage their time effectively, set goals for themselves, and demonstrate persistence for self-management. They had to think and reflect by identifying their strengths and areas for improvement, consider new skills, and record their thinking and reflection processes. We did this by recording themselves using videos. Obviously, they need communication because they are interpreting and using audio communication. They are recognizing and creating signs and interpreting and using sounds to transmit messages. And finally, they needed to be creative by considering different ways in which they could play. So the context, it was obviously how we express ourselves and discovering and expressing ideas and feelings and extending and enjoying creativity, appreciating the aesthetic. So this unit was about looking at how real performers organize their practice and reflection routines to produce their best possible performances. So when I mixed all of this together, starting at the bottom left, at the top right with the responsibility, going on to playing an instrument, identifying the skills that they needed and putting it within a context, we came up with a central idea that includes all of that and reads performers practice and reflect to improve their skills and increase the expressive content of their performances. So we have practice and reflection as responsibility. We have increasing the expressive content of their performances has got to do with the function and the perspective of how they are going to put all of that together. So here is an example of the final result of this. So throughout the unit, they learn to play different things. I shared with them different performances from different artists, and then I got them to understand that they could do it themselves. So this was the central idea. This is a final presentation of the unit that we created. So in the final performance, year 5, students worked on 6 songs to play on their recorders. And their final task was to choose one of those songs and played trying to express 2 different ideas. This was their first introduction to music, to instrumental playing, but I wanted them to be aware that they could play in 2 different ways the same song already from the start, so that the idea of perspective, the idea of communication was already present right from the start. And these are some of them.
Hi, today I'm going to be playing Dina, and I'm going to play it happy by playing it quickly and not too loud and not too soft. I'm going to play it happy because I like banjos and Dina's playing a banjo.
play the same song in a different way.
This time I'm gonna play Dina Angry by playing it loud and getting faster, because Dina's the only one that plays the banjo in the family, in the house. So I feel like it's the odd one out.
I think that this is a clear example of how students could identify those ideas of function and perspective by using the musical elements in different ways to express different ideas using the same song. As a professional musician, this is something that I didn't start doing until way into my career, to realize that I had the capacity to change the way I played things by having it being my own choice rather than what my teacher was telling me to do it. So it wasn't always finding the right answer, but realizing that I have the capacity to do it in different ways. A couple more examples.
They're playing a winter train ride with a exciting way and quickly and loud.
All right, year 5 days. Let's be here. We'll finish on Thursday.
So today I'm going to play winter train ride in a tired way, and then getting slower and getting softer.
So when we go on to what was their understanding, I asked them at the end to complete a piece of work just telling me on their own words what was the central idea. So these are some of the ideas that they came up with. I've learned how to express my feelings through music and the recorder, which I thought was pretty deep when we're talking about 9-year-olds. The most important thing is to look back at what I've done. So the idea of reflecting was already coming very strongly to them. I learned to play music in different ways and tell different stories with my recorder. Being honest with ourselves and being responsible. I love this one. This came from a video that we watched with guitarist Joe Satriani, that said that the most important lesson that students could take is being honest with themselves. So if you don't know all the notes on your guitar, then you already know what you need to start learning. I learned that when you say you can't, you can. So the idea of resilience and perseverance came through very strongly. So when I asked them to reflect on the specific concepts, this is what they thought about responsibility. It's important in music because I need to be responsible to upload my songs on time. So we were using Flipgrid as a recording platform for their videos, and they had to do it on a regular basis. To be responsible, to practice and record and take care of the instruments. So for reflection, they were saying reflection is important in music because I need to reflect on what I have done so that I can improve. Very strongly, the idea of feedback and feed forward coming through. How to be honest with our recording every week. So establishing good practices and routines. When I asked them about perspective, they said that they could tell stories using music and how I can tell stories in different ways. So throughout, I engaged them into self-assessment routines by regularly looking back at what I had learned. So they were looking clearly at the different areas, and this was the idea of function. How am I going to use my fingering, my tone, my expression to be able to express myself? So they could regularly, every week they would self-assess, and they would look at where they were in the rubric. And then we use this to reflect on what to do next. So they were, for example, this one was proud that he can play 5 songs and he needs to improve on one of them. And he realizes that he needs to practice a bit more. And then looking at the competencies, we looked not only at what they were learning, but they were also looking at how they had learned, which is then planning what they were doing, using their time properly, showing resilience and responsibility. So by self-assessing their skills and how they are learning, they can identify what are the steps that they need to take to be able to succeed in their progress. So moving on, again, we are looking back at the skills, at these ATLs. They are very proud that they could record 5 songs. So this is not looking at the product, but it's looking at the process. I'm proud that I've managed to record it. So I've been responsible. And I think that I need to improve on submitting the songs on time. So to achieve this, I will need to make time to submit my song. So identifying the time that they need. Okay, so this was the unit for grades 4 and 5. Maybe Ali, we can pause here for a minute, and if there are any questions about this unit in particular.
I have a long list of questions while you are going maybe or finding your KG unit, Fernando. Yep. And I'm going to start with questions related to time, related to number of units. And so you got those questions about how many units do you do per year, Fernando? Okay,
so generally, I find that doing more than 4 units per year is going to stretch myself more than I can do. When I first started working with Ali, and he probably will remember this and will tell you, I just wanted to do everything all the time. And every class, I needed to pack in absolutely everything. I realized over the years that less is more. And that if I want to dig deeply into these ideas, they need time to develop. And if I want to get students used to doing things like assessing their own work and reflecting and identifying all of these big ideas, then I need to give them time. So it depends a lot on what is your context in terms of how many hours you have per week. I've been privileged that in most places where I've worked, I would have 2 sessions per week. And if I didn't,
this was another question, Fernando. How many sessions do you have per week?
If I didn't have 2 sessions per week, then I would push really, really hard to get those and create extra time. Using technology for this is very useful, very important. If you're using things like Seesaw as an e-portfolio, if you're using Flipgrid, if you're using any of these that you allow the students to share their responses with you when they are not in class, that's very important and very useful and actually fundamental to get into these ideas. So if I want 7-year-olds to exercise their responsibility of doing things regularly, then I need to give them the tools. So if I help them by asking them to record themselves at home, if I get the families involved by getting them to help them create a timetable, then these are ways of creating extra time. But going back to the question of how many units, I would try to obviously integrate at least once per year if there is meaningful integration, but definitely at least once, but ideally integrate with 2 of the units that they're doing in their class, and then do another couple of units that would be standalones. And the standalones units would probably stretch for longer than the 6 or 7 weeks that a transdisciplinary unit would.
Good. So you answered those quick questions about number of units, number of session integration. And Salam is asking how many students do you teach in all? When we used to work together, Fernando, you had around the whole primary, right? Like 300 students. And
yeah,
then
generally,
currently, or in your previous school?
Generally, when I've been working at school, it's been working with the whole primary. We did 1 year in Qatar. We did 1 year that the other teacher and myself, we shared the entire school. So we stretched ourselves, but we did, in terms of numbers, it was the same as if we had been just taking one section of the school. That was an amazing year because we became good friends and we shared a lot of vision, and it was great to structure the curriculum right from the start all the way to the end of MYP. So that was a very, very exciting time. But generally, I would be working with around 120 and 140 students throughout the whole of primary.
Okay, good. Sean is asking about the units that they've been successful outside how we express ourselves. And I know from the presentation that you will be sharing a unit under a different transdisciplinary theme, Fernando, right? I think the early years one.
I think so, yes. Anyway, I need to double check.
Because I know that the examples are coming from different themes. So let's attack the early years unit, and then we will continue with other questions later on.
That's a very good question in terms of the, I can see how it would come from the idea that we are always dealing with the same context. But I am about now, so we in the program of inquiry that we are working on right now, we'll have quite a few of units working with how the world works. So for example, units that are talking about materials, in which you can talk about the properties of materials within music, creating different instruments, using materials in different ways to create sound. Where we are are in place and time is is quite strong as well. And you can look at how things have changed over time, looking at historical perspectives. So it would be possible to integrate with some of those. So then we can maybe move on to the early years unit. This one started from the competences, because one of the biggest challenges when you're working with young children is not to teach them how to play instruments, but to actually teach them how not to play instruments. So to just not make the noise and be able to control your own actions is probably the most important teaching that you can have. It's weird that as a music teacher you would want them to learn how not to play. But I think this is, again, one of those moments in which you realize that you can use your music classes to teach other competencies. So using music and teaching through music. So my idea was, how can I get my students to understand that they need to not play? They need to learn when not to play. So this was the beginning. So I want them to develop the capacity to take responsibility for their own actions. So from here, I went straight into the content, which is, all right, it is here in the scope and sequence, develop the ability to start and stop together. We are going to use instruments, therefore we can explore them and we're going to play them. We're going to distinguish their sounds. We're going to use classroom instruments, and we are obviously going to participate in performing and creating music together. And then we're going to be exploring vocal sounds, rhythms, and so on. So this is where it came. And I thought then, okay, we've got the responsibility, but then as we are going to be looking at using instruments, we can look at the form and function of these instruments. They can be played, they can be made with different materials, and they can be played in different ways. And then again, looking at the idea of using expressive playing, then we can use instruments to express different ideas and feelings. So it went from just being able to not play to then learning when to play, but also how to play and how we can use music and instruments expressively. So this is also on how we express ourselves and discover and express ideas and feelings, and extending our creativity, and looking at music as a form of expression of ideas, but also looking at how the instruments work and how we can use them. So then I thought that it would be good for them to use their research skills to observe and find and notice relevant details about the instruments, and then maybe record their observations in a way that would help them understand all of those concepts. And we would be thinking, because if we are being creative in the way that we play the instruments, we need to generate metaphors and analogies and create original works and ideas. So combining all of these together, we came to the central idea that musicians use instruments responsibly and creatively to add expression to their performances. So we've got the idea of being responsible, we have the idea of being creative, and we have the idea of expressing ourselves when we are performing. So here you can see how I try to balance the responsibility and the function by understanding when to play and how instruments are made, with the self-management and research skills. So this is about a 5-minute long video, but it will take you through the whole process of how the unit developed and evolved throughout I think probably we did 7 weeks or 8 weeks of this work. Tell me, Emily, what instrument were you playing?
I don't know.
You don't know the name?
I don't know.
You don't know the name?
I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know the name. How do you play it though? Can you show me? Okay, can you show me how it works? What do you need to do?
I just putting this at the end.
So you shake it. So tell me, what do you need to do to play the instrument?
I have to hit this.
Shake it.
I don't know.
You don't know. Can you have a look and tell me what you see?
I think with this.
those, okay? And what do they do? How do they make the sound?
Just
What is it made of?
wood, I think. Look, that I have a ground. This
Oh.
does not have ground.
So it has a round in the middle with something else. So what's the difference? What do you do with that one? So what can you do as well as
Louder.
shake? You
It's
can do
louder.
louder if you hit it with your hand. Does it make the same sound of both sides?
Nope.
No. What's the difference between them?
Because this one makes it like louder and this one is like a little bit softer.
So what makes the sound?
Inside.
Something inside. What do you think is inside? Something, some little balls of something?
Yeah. Black.
Black. You think they're black?
Circle.
Circles?
Like this way off the head.
Okay, very good. Do they sound different or similar?
Different.
Different. They sound different. Why do you think they sound different?
Because inside things is different.
So here you can see this is the worksheet that I gave them to analyze the different the different areas and the different elements. They had to draw a picture on the top left to help them understand the form. What is it like? And then we were looking at what is it made of. So it was made of different things. I had those pictures also because I used, even though here you can see year 2, so these are grade 1s. I did this unit also with reception students that are 4-year-olds. So on the right, then you can look at the perspective. And it says, if you play it softly, what does it sound like? And if you play it loudly, what does it sound like? And then on the at the bottom, we could look at the different ways in which they could be played. They could be played by hitting, shaking, or scraping. And then on the top left, it was all about responsibility. How do we look after this instrument? How can we make sure that we can still use it? Anmol, tell me, what instrument are you playing?
I got bossy drum.
And what is the bossy drum made of?
Wood and plastic. Wood, rubber.
Wood and rubber. Can you show me where the wood is?
The wood is here,
And where is the rubber?
like over here.
Oh, how does it sound when you play it softly?
It sounds like a piano and Twinkle Little Stars.
Can you play that and show me that? Very nice. And what does it sound like when you play it loud?
It sounds like you're running, and it sounds like you're stretching.
Okay, can you play that and show me that? Okay, and show me. If you play it softly, what does it sound like?
Footsteps.
Show me. And if you play it loud, what does it sound like?
Like an elephant.
Let me hear it. How?
If you play it softly, it looks like salt. If you play it like hardly, it looks like
Okay, can you show me how they play, how they sound soft and loud?
They made of wood and goat skin.
And how do you play it?
Hitting.
Hitting it. Now, if you play it softly, what does it sound like?
It's like mouth running.
Can you show me? And if you play it loud, what does it sound like?
Dinosaur feet.
Can you show me that? So this was a presentation that we did for parents, but we also had a recording in class. So this was when I wanted to balance it with the actually fact of making music. So it was about putting it in action, what we had learned, and actually develop those skills. So we developed creativity and expression by discussing how we were going to use the instruments in a creative way, but we were also developing subject-specific skills like playing together in time with a good pulse and singing and developing our capacity for pitch. So with this song, we're going to show how we've learned to use our instruments creatively and responsibly. Creatively, because they represent different parts of the song. What do the shakers represent, guys?
Rain.
The rain. And the bells?
Rain.
Rain as well. And what do the drums represent?
Jumping.
Jumping. And the jingle bells? Freezing cold and soaking wet. Now the responsibility comes because we have learned how we can play these instruments at the right time and making sure that we play them only at the right time. Okay, ready? Ready to sing. So this was the end of this unit. So maybe Ali, we can take some questions here about this unit in particular, about any other issues.
Yeah, so we have a full list of questions, Fernando, and then one of the question that choice of the songs, like do you allow them to choose their own songs, or do you have a bank of songs? When you are working on songs.
That depends. Generally, I am pretty controlling on that department, because I think that giving too much scope and too much choice can be a little dangerous in terms of the development of the subject-specific skills. I always had this conversation with my teaching partner and saying, well, we cannot just throw away hundreds of thousands of years of human evolution in terms of what we have learned about things, and we are at the end of the day the experts, and we know and we have learned that the pentatonic scale is probably the best place to start when you are developing your capacity to sing in tune. So when you start singing songs with just 2 notes, we know that that is the best way to support the children's development on their capacity to sing in tune. So if I let them choose songs that they're not ready to sing, then I'm actually setting them for failure. So I prefer generally to start with songs that only have 2, 3, or up to 5 notes in the pentatonic scale and stay there for a very long time. And there is plenty of choice there. There is a lot of folk music that works around that. If you are familiar, probably many of you are familiar with the work of Sultan Kodai on this. I follow the Kodai method, and there are plenty of choices there. When we get onto older year grade levels, what I do is that I give them choice. So I will select maybe 5, 6, 7 songs and let them choose out of those which ones they would like to do. That works well as a differentiation tool, because sometimes students will choose one of them and others will be able to tackle all 6 of them and even go further. It is also dependent on what type of students you have. You will probably all have students that do music classes outside school, and then obviously they are at a higher level of development. And at that point, then sure, of course, you can let them choose more and you can give them a little more freedom. But generally, I like to be in control of the repertoire that they're using, or at least to know that the elements that they're using are age appropriate for them.
Okay, so people were asking, was it a KG student, the unit that you just shared now? So can you give us the age of these students?
So the age, these ones that I just shared are grade 2. So year 2, which are grade 1s, which
so
means
6 years old.
They were 6 years old, but I have done this unit also with 4-year-olds. So, and it works with 4-year-olds as well. Obviously, you need to adapt a little bit the vocabulary, but the worksheets that I created, it was the same. It needs to be more guided. So we were completing all of those worksheets together. So I would discuss it with them, and then we will fill it in together. But this was, again, the idea. It's already getting into then the idea of research. What does research mean? It means to observe. It means to take notes. It means to actually fill in the correct box for the different things that you're doing. So there are many links there. It's linking with data gathering. It's linking with dealing with data handling. We can talk about the different types of instruments that we had. So it is a unit that also works at that level.
Okay, timing of your sessions, Fernando, like how many minutes per week?
Usually with the younger grades, I work around, I try to work
30
around
minutes, right?
45 minutes with the early years. And then I always try to push for as long as I can. In the last school where I worked, I ended up having 2 one-hour sessions with the older year groups. Which was great, or at least having 1 40-minute session and 1 60-minute session. We've also done that with different timetabling, flexible.
So regarding the assessment, do you do it one-to-one with the KG student? So what happens to the other?
Generally, when I look at assessment, especially with the early year groups, I'm not very meticulous on the idea of assessing. My idea of assessment has got more to do with exposure and opportunity. So if we do things together and we repeat over and over, and I give them the opportunity of demonstrating that they can follow pulse, that they can follow the rhythm and the pitch and so on, it's mostly based on observation and feedback on the spot. When it comes to gathering more sort of systematic data, I use a lot of video, and then I will use those videos to assess. And these little interviews like you just saw, sometimes they can be done individually, and they will do it using these tools that I explained, whether it's CISO or Flipgrid, and then using that video evidence as an assessment tool.
When you are starting from zero, Fernando, and I remember this when we started together in Qatar, where do you look at your learning outcomes? Do you look only at the IB scope and sequence, or do you look at the British curriculum, American curriculum? So I think this can also help the attendees.
What is interesting is that the scope and sequence is a bit of a double-edged sword, because it's beautifully vague and abstract, which means that you can adapt it to a lot of situations that you do, but it's not very good on in my opinion, it's not very good on the guidance of the development of skills. The IB used to have a different one, I think it was from 2012, that had another strand on performing, and it gave more guidance on that side. As a professional musician, I'm pretty aware of what are the developments that are needed. And we have, at the end of the day, when you look at the different musical elements, you just want students to develop a good sense of pulse, a good sense of pitch, a good sense of rhythm, and being expressive and creative. So that can be applied to any student that you have and adapted to their specific context and their specific age level. So I will generally look at the scope and sequence to make sure that the conceptual understanding is being developed and we are covering those areas. And there I have created my own standards for skill development. And I've done it on using I can statements so that I can share them with the students as well. And for them to understand what is it exactly that they need to be able to do. Like I can play a song that contains this amount of notes, or I can play, or I can clap along a song in time with the rest of the group, for example.
Good. So I will start wrapping up this session, Fernando. And if you don't mind stopping sharing your screen, and while you're doing that, someone is asking, where can we find you on social media? And I know Fernando, I'm pushing him to be on Facebook, but he's not. So do you mind sharing in the chat maybe your LinkedIn account, or maybe your blog, your website, because people are very interested in collaborating with you. And while you are doing that in that chat, I'm going just to show you again what do we still have for today. I know the majority of you are music teachers, but you can check our website, and for the day after this lunch break, if you are an Arabic speaker, we have a session in Arabic. If you are an early year teacher, come and join us for an early year session and how to promote conceptual understanding in early years. If you are teaching using an additional language, maybe you might be interested in the concepts and additional language. And then finally, at the end of the day, if you know any PE teacher, you can invite him to join our session, where it will be also full of hands-on activity and units of inquiry at the end of the day with Mihai. You can support all our work that we are doing for you for free by buying a certificate. Those certificates, you can find them on our website. So there is a very simple link. You go on the online workshops where you are going to find, or the paid online training, you are going to find the concept day. You can choose a certificate for the session that you attended, or you can choose a certificate for the whole day if you are attending the whole day. The certificate is only €5. You will get it via email. You go on the website, like you are on Amazon or any website, you are buying something online, you add it to your basket, and then you will use your credit card to pay for that. If you have any question or any clarification,
You're muted, Ali.
so this is a little bit about the certificate and the website. I'm sharing with you again in the chat the link for the website, the upcoming event, the link for the certificate, and the link of our YouTube channel. I can see that Fernando shared his details in the chat. I know we have a very long list of questions, Fernando, but unfortunately, we are going to wrap it up here and hopefully invite you again. So Fernando had a session at the beginning of the lockdown where he shared plenty of ideas how to teach art online. And during this session, we had also Zita, who's attending with us, and we shared how to teach visual art and music, but we didn't record this session. So hopefully we can invite you again for another webinar where you are going to share your expertise, your units, and answer the question of our attendees. So I'm going to stop the live on Facebook now.
Well, can I just say thank you very much to everybody. I've left my email address there. Feel free to contact me there. There is a link to a website with all the work that I did in my last school that is there. A lot of the information and the stuff that is there, I'm happy to share, and you're very welcome to use. And just contact me if you have any specific ideas. And I'd love to hear your feedback, and we'll be very happy to organize other sessions through Ali to explore any deeper all of these ideas.
So Fernando, do you mind sharing your email again in the chat?